Hello, we welcome you to today's Bible study session. Today we are going to look at an interaction between Saul and David. We remember that in the last Bible study we looked at the interaction between David and Goliath in the battlefield. David had killed Goliath, a Philistine champion. And as a result, the Philistines went on the run, and the Israeli army went after them and killed them. So David helped the Israeli army defeat the Philistines. We also remember that David was in Saul's service prior to the battle with Goliath. After the battle with Goliath, of course, he returned to his service in Saul's house. But Saul became jealous of David. So jealous, basically, that he began to get concerned that David was going to steal the kingdom from him. We'll see the basis for his fear and how he handled his fear. Basically, he tried to kill David. We will learn that as I said, Saul became very jealous of David because David killed Goliath. David did things that Saul could not do. He killed Goliath, he led the Israeli army to victory over the Philistines at a time that Saul was really frightened to do these things, too frightened to do them. So what Saul did was he sought to kill David. We will see several attempts that he made at David's life. And everything we're going to learn will be in 1 Samuel chapter 18 and 19. We will also find that there are parallels of the David-Saul interaction has parallels in present-day interactions between people. And we will examine one of these parallel situations and look at what we should do if we find ourselves in such situations. Well, why was Saul jealous of David? As I said, David killed Goliath. That's something that Saul was frightened to do. In fact, Saul and the rest of the Israeli army were frightened to come out against Goliath. David arrived in the field, saw what was going on, and consulted with the soldiers. They met with Saul and obtained permission from Saul to kill Goliath. He battled with Goliath. We discussed this during the last Bible study session. And of course, it wasn't really a battle. He simply killed Goliath because God handed Goliath over to David to kill. And the result of killing Goliath was that he led the Israeli army to victory over the Philistines, because as soon as they saw that their champion had been killed, these Philistines took off and ran and scattered in every direction. The Israelis pursued them and destroyed many of them, killed many of them, overran them, and plundered their supplies. So Saul didn't like this. He was jealous. Another thing was Saul was too frightened to do any of these things. So something in him told him that David was adequate where he, Saul, was inadequate. It's a classic case of a rising subordinate in the presence of a master. The master sees himself as inadequate, but the subordinate proves adequate in several things that the master is unable to do. So this is a testy situation, and definitely it drove Saul to want to get rid of David at all cost. Of course, the Israeli women, when Saul and his people were coming back from battle, they came out to greet them with songs and music and all that. But in their greeting, they sang something that indicated, that suggested that they appreciated David's accomplishments more than they appreciated Saul's accomplishments. Of course, this drove Saul to the edge. Let us read about this in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 6 to 9. Oh.
1 Samuel chapter 18. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul, with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and with tambourines and lutes. As they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David has tens of thousands. Saul was very angry. His refrain gallied him. They had credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David.
Yes, Saul kept a jealous eye on David because he believed that he saw David as being appreciated more by the Israelis. He saw David as doing things that he could not do, and he wondered what's next. David is going to get the kingdom. Remember, Saul was the first king of Israel. He believed that the kingdom, that is the kingship, should pass to his children. But he is now beginning to see signs that that's not what's going to happen. Well, Saul also knew that God was with David. Whatever David did, he was successful. He found success in everything he did. People loved him. God loved him apparently because he found success in everything he did. But at the same time, God had left Saul. Remember that Saul failed to carry out the mission that was assigned to him, and as a result, God departed from him. God told Samuel to leave Saul, and also a bad spirit, they said, called it an evil spirit from God, kept bothering Saul. Essentially, Saul became crazy. He was crazy. So he knows that God was no longer working with him, but God was apparently working with David. David was loved by all Israel. Everything he was given to do, he did successfully. Every battle that he was sent to, he fought successfully. So this is one of the reasons Saul was afraid of David. He was jealous of David, but he was also afraid that David was going to take his kingdom. Let us read about this in 1 Samuel 18, verses 12 to 16.
First Samuel chapter 18. Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with David, but he had left Saul. So he sent David away from him, and gave him command over thousands of men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. In everything he did, he had great success, because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, because he had led them in their campaigns.
So Saul decided that the right thing to do, the only thing that he had to do was kill David. That David was in his way, was a rising subordinate, but the one that he believed was going to take over, force him out and take his kingdom. So he made his first attempt. He wanted to use the fact that he was crazy. He essentially plotted to kill David, because remember, David played hard for him. So what he wanted to do was to use his spear to strike David while David was playing for him. Of course, while doing this, he would pretend to be crazy, but as we see, this is a decision he made, so it wasn't really because he was crazy. but he just wanted to use that to pretend that there was an accident in his brain, and he killed David as a result. Let us read about this in 1 Samuel 18, 10 to 11.
The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. He was prophesying in his house when David was playing the harp, as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, "I'll pin David to the wall." But David eluded him twice.
So twice he tried, twice David ducked, eluded him. Then he made his second attempt. This time he realized that trying to strike David with his spear was not working. So he said, okay, let me not kill David myself. Let me get the Philistines to do it. And one way to motivate David to go to a battle, a dangerous assignment against the Philistines. And one way to do that was to get him to marry his first daughter. Saul wanted David to marry his first daughter, Merab, but tried to lure David, use Merab to lure David into taking a dangerous mission against the Philistines. This is quite a plot, and a plot in which a man was going to use his daughter as bait for another man. Let us read about this in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 17 to 19.
1 Samuel chapter 18. Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord." For Saul said to himself, "I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that." But David said to Saul, "Who am I, and what is my family, or my father's clan in Israel, that I should become the king's son-in-law?" So when the time came for Merab, Saul's daughter, to be given to David, she was given in marriage to Adriel of Meholah.
Yes, so David didn't he didn't fall for it. He really didn't want Merab. He just told Saul and said, who am I? How can I become the king's son-in-law? So he was able to get himself out of it, and then since it was time for Merab to get married, Saul gave her to another person, Adriel of Meholah. But notice here what Saul was using. He was trying to use the fact that David was a brave man, and also David loves the Lord. He loves doing things for God. So Saul tried to use that. He said, hey, just serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord. Well, what he was really trying to do was get David to undertake a dangerous mission against the Philistines. David didn't fall for it. But the next one, Saul's third attempt on David's life, was in fact about almost like the second. This time, Saul decided to use his second daughter, Michal. And the difference in this case is that Michal was in love with David, and David was in love with Michal. So this is, David was, that is, the conditions were right for David to be lured using Michal as bait. And that's exactly what Saul tried to do. He said, look, I'm going to use my younger daughter this time, and I'm going to again try to use her to motivate David to undertake a dangerous mission. Well, David again wasn't really enthusiastic, because he considered himself inadequate to marry the king's daughter. Well, when Saul realized this, he sent a message through his attendants, say, look, go and convince David to marry Michal. And David told them that, well, he didn't have money for the wedding. He couldn't finance it. His family couldn't finance it. That becoming a king's son-in-law is not a small matter. So then Saul said, look, I don't need any money from you. All I need is 100 foreskins of the Philistines. This is a gruesome act. David took the bet this time. He's a very brave person, so he picked up his men, went to battle against the Philistines, and instead of 100, he killed 200 of them, and then cut off their foreskins and brought to Saul. Let us read about this in 1 Samuel 18, verses 20 to 27.
1 Samuel chapter 18. Now Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David, and when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. I will give her to him, he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So Saul said to David, now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. Then Saul ordered his attendants, speak to David privately, and say, look, the king is pleased with you, and his attendants all like you. Now become his son-in-law. They repeated these words to David, but David said, do you think it is a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I am only a poor man and little known. When Saul's servant told him what David had said, Saul replied, say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies. Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So before the allotted time elapsed, David and his men went out and killed 200 Philistines. He brought their foreskins and presented the full number to the king, so that he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage.
So David married Michal. He provided what Saul asked him to provide, but the Philistines, of course, didn't kill him. He killed them instead. So that plot, even though David fell for it, he did not produce the result that Saul wanted. So that took Saul to his fourth attempt at David's life. This time, he told his son Jonathan and all his attendants that they should kill David. Then his son Jonathan at that time already had become very friendly with David. They in fact loved each other. They really cared for each other. They will not go into this. It's going to be the subject of the next lesson. But Jonathan was so fond of David that he wouldn't let this happen. He also knew that this was wrong. It's not just he was fond of David, he also knew his father was wrong. So first of all, he informed David and said, look, my father is planning to kill you. What I want you to do is go into hiding and let me talk to my father. And I'm going to let him know that what he's trying to do is wrong. So Jonathan talked to his father Saul, and in fact convinced him. He convinced Saul to let David come back and to not make an attempt to kill David. And Saul agreed. He convinced Saul. Let us read about this in 1 Samuel 19, verses 1 to 7, I think.
1 Samuel chapter 19. Saul told his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David, but Jonathan was very fond of David and warned him, my father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning. Go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are. I'll speak to him about you and will tell you what I find out. Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father, and said to him, let not the king do wrong to his servant David. He has not wronged you, and what he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life in his hands when he killed the Philistine. The Lord won a great victory for all Israel, and you saw it and were glad. Why then would you do wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason? Saul listened to Jonathan and took his oath. As surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death. So Jonathan called David and told him the whole conversation. He brought him to Saul, and David was with Saul as before.
Yes, so Jonathan essentially brokered peace between his father and David. He talked to his father, reminded his father that David did something good, something that benefited the whole Israel and benefited his father. That it was wrong to try to make any attempt at the young man's life. His father agreed with him, and David returned to Saul's service. Well, that was unfortunately not the end of it, because then there was another war between the Israelites and the Philistines, and David was sent to war with other people, and David did very well. He defeated, he struck a death blow on the Philistines. He really drove them, they ran away because of him, and he was so successful that again the whole of Israel was very happy with David. Well, that brought back Saul's jealousy, Saul's fright of David. And this time he was determined. He wasn't going to give anything to chance. He was determined to kill David. Again, he first tried the accident. That the very first thing he tried, which was, pretend he was crazy. Well, he was crazy, but he knew what he was doing. So in this particular instance, he really wasn't crazy. So pretend he was so crazy that he threw his spear at David and killed him. Well, David saw the spear coming and eluded Saul again. This time David realized that as long as he was in the presence of Saul, that his life was in danger. So that night he escaped and went to his house. Saul sent men to go after David. Said, look, go to his house and get him. They were going to get him in the morning. His wife Michal got wind of this and then helped David to escape through the window. David left the house. He told David, you have to leave tonight. If you stay here until morning, you will be killed. So David escaped through the window and ran away. His wife made up an idol and made something on the bed and put goat hair on it, so it looked like David was there. In the morning, the men came looking for David. His wife told them, oh, he's ill. They went back and told Saul that David was ill. He sent them back and said, go and bring him in his sick bed so I can kill him. They went there, then they found out that he wasn't really there. Let us read about this, verses 8 to 17 of 1 Samuel chapter 19.
1 Samuel chapter 19. Once more war broke out, and David went out and fought the Philistines. He struck them with such force that they fled before him. But an evil spirit from the Lord came upon Saul, as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand, while David was playing the harp. Saul tried to pin him to the wall with his spear, but David eluded him, and Saul drove the spear into the wall. That night David made good his escape. Saul sent men to David's house to watch it and kill him in the morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed. So Michal let David down through a window, and he fled and escaped. Then Michal took an idol and laid it on the bed, covering it with a garment and putting some goat's hair on the head. When Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, he is ill. Then Saul sent the men back to see David and told them, bring him up to me in his bed so that I may kill him. But when the men entered, there was an idol in the bed, and at the head was some goat's hair. Saul said to Michal, why did you deceive me like this, and send my enemy away so that he may escape? Michal told him, he said to me, let me get away. Why should I kill you?
Yeah, Michal told him that David asked to get away, and that if he didn't, then he would have to kill Michal. That was a way to convince her father that she had to let David go. But the important thing is that Michal let David escape. And David did not come back to Saul. Of course, in future Bible studies, we'll see several interactions between David and Saul, because Saul pursued him and tried whatever he could to capture him and kill him. That is a long story that we are going to study in future Bible studies. But let us see what we learned today and why, what we may learn from it. Obviously, we learned the story of David. Saul tried to kill David. The reason he tried to kill him is that he was jealous of David, because David accomplished things that Saul could not accomplish. We remember, to help us understand what was going on, remember that Saul was king and David was a subordinate. David was just somebody coming up, but Saul noticed that there was something special about this young man. And most important, he felt that this man was becoming more popular among the Israelis, and that it's very likely that this man will become a danger to continuation of his kingdom. He was afraid of David also. It's not just that he was jealous. He was afraid of him because he noticed that God was with David. And, people appreciated David more than appreciated Saul. So Saul believed that he was going to lose his kingdom to David. Are there parallel situations in present day life? Of course there are. And I believe that's what we benefit by learning about this interaction between Saul and David, is to ask ourselves, are there parallel situations in which we may find ourselves? And if we do find ourselves in such parallel situations, what should we do? Well, a similar present day circumstance will be where in an organization, a subordinate introduces an innovation that exceeds what the person in authority could do. Maybe your boss in the office, maybe somebody that is in authority over you. You are both involved in the same business, you are both involved doing the same things, but you have an idea how things might work better for the organization. And this idea becomes one that it looks very, very successful, a high level innovation. Your boss, in fact, or the person in authority would have liked to be the person to introduce this idea. But he knows he didn't introduce it. He's afraid that if this idea becomes successful, that maybe one day he will be edged out so that you can take over the running of the organization. Or he's afraid of this for one reason or the other. Exactly the same kind of reasons why Saul was afraid of David. So what happens? The person in authority, your boss in that case, tries to either to suppress the subordinate or suppress the innovation, either to make the innovation go away, just try to dismiss it as nothing, try to place all sorts of obstacles on your way so that you could not implement it. Or he tries to suppress you yourself. He finds that, look, the best thing is to get rid of this person. Tries to find a way to get you fired from the job, if it's a job, or if it's another situation, he tries to find a way to get you off there. And in the worst case, your life might even be threatened because you have suggested something good. It's not because you've done anything wrong, it's because you've done something so good that the person in authority over you appears frightened or is I said appear. He or she is genuinely frightened, and your life, either your life is threatened or the life of the innovation is threatened. Now, what should we do in circumstances like that? I think first of all we need to talk about what the person in authority ought to do to avoid this kind of situation. Really, the person in authority is supposed to encourage his or her subordinates to introduce such innovation. He's supposed to embrace them. He's supposed to not be afraid of them, but accommodate them, bring them in. We studied something like this in April when we were looking at strategic alliance, and we looked at what is the perfect heart for strategic alliance. How should somebody position himself to build up strong alliances with other people, to build up strong collaboration with other people. And in this particular case, the person in authority would gain a lot by adopting what we described as the wisdom of the second boat. Remember, this is based on the passage in Luke chapter 5, when Christ came, saw two boats, entered one of them, then the second boat stayed close enough so that when the first boat, the chosen boat, the one that Christ chose, when it was time for harvest and they found that they couldn't handle the harvest, they couldn't pull all the fish into their boat, they called for help. The second boat was close enough so when the first boat, when the chosen boat called for help, they had it and came in to help. That's like a metaphor. Essentially what he's saying is this: as somebody in authority who has found that his subordinate has brought in a good idea, what you do is encourage the idea. Stay close to him, follow him in good faith, or her in good faith, close enough so that you can render, you would know when assistance is needed and render the assistance as the person in authority. There are so many things a person in authority can do to help a subordinate that has a good idea. So the wisdom of the second boat says, follow in good faith, stay close enough so that you can get involved when necessary to render assistance. But don't go too close. Stay far enough so that you don't interfere with what was going on. What Saul needed to do was encourage David, enjoy what David was doing, and just help him grow up under you. That is the function of somebody in authority. And the good thing, the good thing is, in the case of the second boat, in the story that in the past in the story that was account of interactions between Christ and his disciples that we read in Matthew chapter 5, not Matthew, Luke chapter 5. The second boat actually got just as that is had opportunity to get just as much harvest. In fact, the two boats were filled with fish, so that if any of them had gotten even one fish more, the boat would have sunk, which means they were filled up. Now, which means the second boat got as much harvest as it can carry. More harvest than it could have ever imagined it would get. Which means, as somebody in authority, when your subordinate introduces a new idea, if you support the subordinate, follow the subordinate, give him or her all the assistance that is needed, eventually you may get more benefit than the subordinate. Nobody knows, but you stand a better chance of benefiting from that project, from that innovation, than you will be if you try to kill it. Essentially, what we are saying is, don't be a Saul. Adopt the wisdom of the second boat. Well, what about the subordinate? What should you do? Well, be humble with your innovation. Don't try to throw it in the face of people. Don't try to pump yourself up and start looking like a frog just because you have something new. Be humble about it. Seek collaboration with others, including people in higher authority. That you see what they can do for you, see how you can work with them, and try to work with them. But something very important is you have to understand that God selected you for that, to lead that innovation when He placed it in your mind. Therefore, don't relinquish the leadership position. You must stay in order to, because you know about it better than all the others, and it is your idea. You are going to help it grow. If you relinquish the leadership to other people, they may not accomplish what you would have accomplished as the leader. So stay as the leader of the innovation, carry it through, do the best you can to work with other people, try to accommodate other ideas, try to bring people to work with you, and maintain. Remember, if you haven't suddenly become the highest authority in the organization, you are still under somebody, so show them their respect. Now, if the people in high authority try to threaten you or threaten the innovation, and you do the best you can to prevent this threat, if the threat persists, then you owe it to yourself and you owe it to God to seek alternative options to grow the innovation. Alternative may be leaving the place or making some changes to try to make it more acceptable to other people, but at the same time staying focused on what you want to accomplish. So seek all these alternatives, but remember David. What did David do when he realized that his life would be in danger for as long as he was in the presence of Saul? He escaped. So if the threat persists, escape like David. Do you have any comment or question?
No.
No. Okay.
I said it was a pretty good session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we thank God for this Bible study session. We thank all those that will take time to view the video or listen to the audio. And we pray that you learn something that makes a positive impact on your life and helps you make positive impact on the lives of other people and bring you closer to God's purpose for your life. Thank you. God bless you.